Nobody said it had to be pretty. Nobody said it would be pretty. All that matters, Green Bay gets the win. 16-10 week 2 over the Indianapolis Colts. They protect home field, win the home opener at Lambeau Field by 6 points to move to 1-1 on the season with Jordan Love out and Malik Willis. And big win for Green Bay. You don't want to get behind the 8 ball and start 0-2 with the uncertainty and the unknown of when Jordan Love is going to be back under center. It is Mitch. I am on YouTube. Please subscribe, follow, leave a comment, interact. Appreciate all the support as we build the channel up. Instant reaction, week 2, Packers beat the Colts, move to 1-1, as I mentioned. The script was pretty simple, or maybe I should say pretty obvious for Matt LaFleur. Green Bay was going to run the ball until they couldn't. Green Bay was going to run the ball until they trailed and had to pass it. And Malik Willis, they didn't ask him to do much. I thought he gained more confidence as the game went on, especially in that second half when they wanted him to make a couple of throws. One that sticks out is the deep shot downfield to Romeo Doubs on the near sideline on a 3rd down. Great adjustment by Romeo Doubs to come back and get the pass. A little bit underthrown, but it almost helped out the situation, given that the corner was kind of flying with Romeo Doubs and then had to try to come to a halt and come back. But, yeah, it was a very obvious blueprint for the Packers in this one, and it was run early, run often. Indianapolis yielded 30 carries and 159 yards to Joe Mixon last week. Josh Jacobs ran all over this Indianapolis defense. It blew my mind at times how the Packers kept running for big chunk plays. You know, it wasn't like they were scratching and clawing for 2-3 yards. They were ripping off big run after big run against an Indianapolis defense that I mentioned it in a video earlier this week when I was looking at this matchup. The Colts, after getting gashed by Houston on the ground, had to look at this game and say, okay, one, Green Bay is going to try to run the ball because we just gave up 1 million yards to Houston. Indianapolis gave up the most rushing yards of any team in the NFL in week 1. It was over 200 to Houston. And so Green Bay sees that. Indianapolis also knows that. And the Colts are like, we're going to have to buckle down. 2, the biggest reason is Green Bay's playing with their backup quarterback. And so the Colts go into this thinking, hey, we stack the box. We make Malik Willis beat us with his arm. This could be gravy for us at the end of the day, gravy on top. And instead, Green Bay didn't have to go away from the run because Indianapolis couldn't stop it. In that first quarter, Green Bay had 20 runs to 2 passes. In the first quarter, Green Bay ran it 20 times for 164 yards and had just 2 pass attempts for 14 yards. It was the most rush yards by a Green Bay team in any quarter since 1991. And they didn't slow down. It got a little better in the third quarter for Indianapolis, but it was also at a point where, hell, it couldn't get much worse for the Colts in their run defense. I think how the blueprint unraveled for LaFleur and the Packers couldn't have gone any better. They didn't have to force the issue with the pass game. They didn't have to force deep shots downfield. They didn't have to play from behind. The ground game was that good, and it was that porous of a run defense for Indianapolis. I thought it was a clinic in that first half by Matt LaFleur. There was so much pre-snap motion. I mean, they were sending Jaden Reed left to right. They were sending them, looping them behind Willis and Jacobs when they were lined up in the pistol. Green Bay went pistol. They went shotgun. They went under center a little bit. But Wicks was coming in motion. There was a ton of pre-snap motion with Tucker Kraft. We saw a little bit of Luke Musgrave. I think he had 1 target for 1 reception. Kraft had 2 targets, 2 receptions. The passing game wasn't a big deal. It didn't need to be. But there was so much pre-snap motion, and if nothing else, it keeps the defense on their toes. And that was the point of it for Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, and it worked perfectly. I thought it was like poetry in motion. And again, it was only 10-0 at halftime. Like, it wasn't like Green Bay was blowing the doors off Indianapolis. It should have been more. Josh Jacobs had the fumble on the 1 going into the end zone. It would have been 17-0 in the first half. But Green Bay was up 10 rip at the break, and it felt like so much more, like a much bigger lead, which the doubt sort of creeped into my mind when it was 10-0 at the break. Like, if Indianapolis wakes up, this thing could get really, really dicey for the Packers, and the Colts just woke up too little too late against Green Bay. So I thought it was, even though they only scored 10 points in the first half, I thought it was a clinic by Matt LaFleur, and all that pre-snap motion, it just kept Indianapolis' defense bouncing around trying to guess what the Packers were going to do next, when in reality, if you simplified, it was usually centered around running the ball. 20 runs, 2 passes in that first quarter in Green Bay. Really didn't go away from that method throughout much of the afternoon. I thought the second quarter was sloppy. for the Packers. Again, this is Instant Reaction. Mitch, I am on YouTube. Please subscribe, leave a comment if you can, like the video, interact in some way. Appreciate the support. Thought the second quarter was more sloppy after a fast and pretty surprising start for Green Bay to go out of the gates 10-0. You know, opening drive, they get the ball, they go right down the field, get a field goal. They get it back, right down the field, touchdown to Wicks. They get it back, go right down the field again, and then the Jacobs fumble into the end zone for a touchback for Indianapolis. Second quarter, you had the Josh Jacobs fumble. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't remember him having like fumble issues with the Raiders. I know he had a down last season in terms of like his career and his rush yards on average per carry and per game. It wasn't a really good Raiders team, though. And so I know he had a down season a year ago compared to what he had done the year before, but I don't remember fumbles popping up. If I'm not mistaken, he had one against Philadelphia. I think Green Bay recovered it, though. And then he lost this one today. And again, 17-0 in this game would have felt like 31-0. But he fumbled it at the one end of the end zone. There was a flag on Lucas Van Ness when it would have been 2nd and 15 for Indianapolis. Instead, it gave him a 1st and 10. I did not like the call. I thought it was really, really soft. Later on, though, I think it was the very next drive when Green Bay had the ball. It was that same drive. There was a huge holding call on Quentin Nelson, holding Kenny Clark, and I didn't think it was a holding call. It was Sean Hockley and that officiating crew who they love to be on camera. They love to throw the laundry on the field so they can see their face on camera. And, yeah, the flags, the penalties still have to be cleaned up for Green Bay. I don't have the final numbers in front of me, but it was a flag fest at times during that first half. But, yeah, the Jacobs fumble, Van Ness got the penalty. That gave him an auto first. Jaden Reed muffed a punt where it thankfully rolled out of bounds harmlessly, but he was like trying to catch it here while he was also backpedaling a little bit. I mentioned the flags. And then at the end of the first half with Green Bay up 10-0, I get that Matt LaFleur probably looked at that situation. Green Bay's defense got to stop. Indianapolis punts it for a touchback. And there was like a minute 54 or a minute 44 left, somewhere around there. And I get Matt LaFleur saying, let's just be conservative, take it into the break. We're up 10-0. We'll take that 10 times out of 10. And as you told me pregame, Packers can go into halftime up 10-0 on Indianapolis. Sign me up. But the fact that they went run to end that first half and let the clock melt down, I didn't like it. I thought it was too conservative. I thought that was an opportunity. And it wasn't like they got stuffed on first down. You know, they picked up yards on the ground on first down. There ended up being a 3rd and 1 where they let the clock go all the way down and then ran it again, got 2 yards, 3 yards, got the first down, and then just let the clock go to 0. I know field position isn't exactly ideal. You end up getting it out past the 30-yard line to end the half, your own 30-yard line. I thought that was a time and a place to show Malik Willis, like, hey, we've got faith in you. We've got confidence in you to go out and make a couple of plays here to get us into field goal range. And I know the alternative there is you don't want to have the big mistake happen. You don't want the pick six. You don't want the strip sack fumble. You don't want the colossal mistake when you're up 10-0 and you'll take that 10-point lead into the break. But I did think the Packers had the Colts defense on their heels. Green Bay had the momentum at that point. I wanted to see them instill some confidence in Malik Willis because this might not be a 1 week start and then Jordan Love's back for Green Bay. It could very well be Willis next Sunday in Tennessee. So I thought that was a moment where you could have instilled some confidence. You don't have to make it too, diabolical or too confusing or too over the top. I thought a couple of simple passes, maybe a screen, maybe one of those jet touch passes, just to try to pick up a big chunk play and get into field goal range. I wasn't like furious that Green Bay didn't go that route, but I really thought that was a moment on that last drive where they chose to just run the clock out and go into halftime up 10-0, where they could have said, hey, Malik Willis, we've got faith in you to make some plays. So I wasn't crazy about that. And plus, you look at the notes up to that point. Green Bay went into halftime, and they had 9 plays of 10-plus yards. 12, but 3 were negated by penalty. But they had 9 plays of 10-plus yards that counted. Are you telling me they couldn't have done that once or twice to try to get into field goal range instead of just running the clock out? Again, I'm not going to harp on it too much. I just thought that was a spot where you could have looked at your quarterback, your young quarterback backup who's filling in for Jordan Love and said, hey, we got your back, you got ours. Let's go make a couple plays and try to put up 3 before the break. And they didn't. They ran the clock out. Second half, I got to point out a couple of defensive players. Eric Wilson, inside linebacker. I said last week if Eric Wilson's playing a lot of snaps at linebacker for you, probably not your ideal situation. He's more of like a spot player and a really good special teams guy. He had 2 massive, massive plays in this game. There was a power option by Indianapolis to start the fourth quarter. Green Bay's up, but Indianapolis is driving. They've got some momentum. 3rd and 1, first play of the fourth quarter. There was an option play to the near side with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. And at the snap, as the play started unfolding, Eric Wilson was the only one on that near side. And he had to make Richardson make a decision. You're going to keep it, you're going to pitch it. And he just took away both options at once and completely stuffed it and held Indianapolis to a field goal attempt. And it was such a big play because 3rd and 1, let's say Indianapolis runs that for no gain. They might go for it on 4th and 1. It ended up being a negative play for Indianapolis. I think they lost 2 yards, maybe 3, and they settled for the field goal. And then later on, Eric Wilson had the interception. Massive, massive afternoon for him in terms of a couple of big spots where he came up big for the Green Bay defense. And I have to mention Devontae Wyatt as well. Early on in the first half, Indianapolis had strung together a first down. It felt like, oh, okay, maybe they're starting to piece it together. It wasn't like overly critical, but there was a 1st and 10, handoff to Jonathan Taylor. Wyatt just burst right through the middle, stuffed Taylor for a loss of 1. And for an Indianapolis offense that struggled to move the ball, you go 1st and 10 to 2nd and 11. That probably feels like more than 2nd and 11 at that point because they had trouble moving the sticks. And then later on, he had a great sack of Anthony Richardson. So I thought Wyatt kind of showed up in spurts in a couple of those little flash plays as well. For him, it's about finding consistency, and he needs to find that consistency. 2 guys that I really want to see with that word consistent this year are the 2 former first-round picks out of the same draft class from Georgia. It's Wyatt and Quay Walker. If they can be consistent for Green Bay, I think this defense elevates to another level because you're talking about a defensive front there where Kenny Clark's got a real tag team partner on the inside with Wyatt. And that's not taking anything away from Slayton or Carl Brooks or Wooten, who was inactive today. Wyatt was the first-round pick for a reason. So if he can find some consistency, that's going to be huge for Jeff Hafley in the defense. I mentioned the interception of Wilson. Again, it's instant reaction. We're bouncing around. We'll have more structured feedback probably tomorrow. We'll go into snap counts as well. Speaking of snap counts, to branch off real quickly, one thing I brought up last week, Carrington Valentine hardly played against Philadelphia. He came in for a few full series and spelled Eric Stokes, who then later came back in the second half. So Valentine was out there. I don't know the final snap count number, but I know Valentine was out there a lot more this time around than he was week 1 against Philadelphia. Evan Williams had 0 snaps defensively. He recovered the onside kick when it was 16-10 late, and then he intercepted Anthony Richardson on the last play, and there were a couple of spots where I noticed it was him and Xavier McKinney at the safety spots for Green Bay. So I'm interested to see how many snaps Evan Williams ended up with as well for the Packers in this one. I got to shout out the defense again, too. You give up 10 points in an NFL game. I don't care who you're playing. It's impressive. It was an impressive showing by Jeff Hafley's group. Gave up some big runs to Jonathan Taylor. I think that comes with the territory. It wasn't quite what Saquon Barkley did against Green Bay a week ago, but Jonathan Taylor is that good of a back that he's going to probably bust free for a couple, 15-plus yard runs every week, or at least, every other game. And he had a few of those, but early on, Green Bay's defense really bottled things up. The one thing I wanted to point out, wanted to see this defense be aggressive, wanted to see him play opportunistic football. Didn't see it under Joe Barry. Hardly at all. Hardly ever. This defense had 7 interceptions last year. Think about that. 17 games, 7 interceptions. You go look at some of the quarterbacks they played last year, to only come out with 7 in the regular season, nothing to write home about. Actually kind of embarrassing. Green Bay's got 5 in 2 games. They had 2 against Philadelphia. They had 3 today. I know one was on the last play. Evan Williams picks off the last gasp effort for Indianapolis. It still counts. They have 5 in 2 games, 7 all of last year. They forced a fumble against Jonathan Taylor that Indianapolis wide receiver, I forget who it was, batted out of bounds wisely. Otherwise, they could have forced another turnover. That's an opportunistic group that's playing aggressive. There was a third down where Indianapolis converted. I think it was to Pittman, and it was just a comeback route. It was 3rd and 7. It was a comeback route. Pittman was open, caught it, boom, first down. Indianapolis moved the sticks. But when they showed the replay, Keyshawn Nixon was playing press coverage, and he played press coverage throughout. And you know what? He just lost that battle. And I'll take losing that battle if you're playing press coverage and you're playing aggressive compared to what we saw in past years, where when it was 3rd and 7, those corners are 12, 14, 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, and it's just pitch and catch. They put Richardson in a spot where it was like, hey, we're going to press up here on 3rd and 7. You're going to have to make a throw, and he did. And you hat tip, you salute, you say, we'll move on. We'll keep it pedaling. Richardson made the throw in that instance, but Green Bay made it more difficult just by being more aggressive. And so you got it. You want to see that with the defense moving forward. If I'm going to point out a little negative, Braden Narveson, the kicker. I said it last week. You miss from 50-plus once in a while, so be it. I can swallow that pill. I'm fine with that. Make the ones you should make. 45 yards, is that kind of on the fence? I don't know. For an NFL kicker, 45 yards usually seems automatic. And he started the day so good. Narveson was drilling field goals left and right, and then he misses the 45-yarder near the end. And why that became so important. The field goal for Narveson would have put Green Bay at 19. And then that late touchdown for Indianapolis, that put them at 9. They would have had to go for 2 to make it 19-11. Then they would have needed another touchdown, another 2-point conversion just to tie the game at 19. Instead, he misses it at 16-3. Indianapolis goes and scores. Now, all of a sudden, a touchdown extra point, you lose the game. And Indianapolis did get the ball back late and had a Hail Mary shot. And so you weren't out of the woods. You felt good, but you weren't out of the woods. If Narveson makes that 45-yarder, it's 19-3? And then it's like, all right, Indy needs 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions just to tie. You know, I saw Chris Boswell for Pittsburgh go 6 for 6 last week with a long of 57. I saw Dallas's kicker Aubrey go 4 for 4 last week with a long of 57. And last I checked against New Orleans this afternoon, he was 4 for 4 today with a long of 52. I was watching some college football yesterday. I liked Memphis plus 6.5 against Florida State. Not to brag, they won outright. What up? Florida State's kicker going into half made a 54-yarder, and it was dead center, right down the boulevard, with plenty of distance to spare. And I'm not kidding you, when he made that kick from 54, I was like, man, I'm not saying this kicker for Florida State's automatic, but he made 54 yards look so easy. I was like, how can we not figure this out in Green Bay? And I'm not calling for Narveson to get cut or to get rid of him, but that's 2 misses in 2 weeks. 43-yarder against Philadelphia, 45-yarder today. They're not from 50-plus. Just make the ones that we expect you to make. And then from 50-plus, I can live with the results. We can't keep doing this every week. It's going to bite you in the ass at some point. It's going to bite you in the ass. 45 yards for an NFL kicker is not asking for the world. And he started so well and then missed from 45. So I don't know. They're not going to get rid of him. They're not going to do a carousel of kickers this year. I can't see Green Bay going down that route. They're just going to bite the bullet, suck it up, and hope that he figures it out. And he was good up until that last miss. But that last miss matters. You can't just throw it to the side because you won 16-10. It ended up playing a factor in the game with Indianapolis getting that last shot down 16-10 instead of down at Indianapolis' best there 19-11. So, I don't know. Very frustrating, though. And then lastly, want to go back to the defense. You face 2 mobile quarterbacks these first 2 weeks, and that's been a headache for Green Bay defenses in past years. Jalen Hurts was held to 13 carries, 33 yards last week. Anthony Richardson, week 1 against Houston, led Indianapolis in rushing with 56 rushing yards and a touchdown. He had 3 for 16 this afternoon. You have another semi-mobile quarterback in Will Levis next week on the road in Tennessee. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Jeff Hafley's group when it comes to containing mobile quarterbacks and not letting him get outside of the pocket and run wild. And I know Anthony Richardson used his legs to convert that 4th down late, which then a couple plays later led to that touchdown pass to make it 16-10. But larger picture, he didn't do anything really in the ground game. 3 carries, 3 rushes, 16 yards. Coming off a performance where Green Bay held Hurts to 13 rushes for 33 yards. So I absolutely loved seeing that with the run defense. Biggest thing here, end of the year, no one's going to look back and say, man, you remember when Green Bay had that less than impressive, greasy win against Indianapolis? No one's going to say that. Not in the NFL. You don't need style points in the NFL. That's for college football where they have a top 25 and 12 teams try to sneak into the playoffs. There's no rankings in the NFL that matter. It's wins, losses. That's it. we look back at this one a month from now, 2 months from now, and we say, man, nice win against Indianapolis to get us to 1-1 instead of going to 0-2. And with Willis in there, I said, if you could just find a way, if Love's not back in the next couple weeks, find a way to go 1-1. Because 0-2, you're going to feel a lot of pressure going to Tennessee, feeling like, man, we got to win this because 0-3, even if we get Love back for Minnesota, that's a big hole to dig out of for any NFL team when you only get 17 cracks at this thing. There's a little weight lifted off the shoulders today going 1-1. Now you got to keep your foot on the gas. But I was hoping just get one of these next two because we didn't know what this picture was going to look like with Malik Willis. He just got traded to this team a couple weeks ago. You think he knows the whole playbook, has everything down? No, he doesn't. A rhythm with all of his teammates, all of his wide receivers, tight ends, running backs? No, heck no. But they got the win today. And now we want to be a little bit greedy. If it's Willis next week facing his former team, he's going to want a little get back. Go get a win in Tennessee now. Next week, go 2-1. Then you're feeling really good about things. You get 2 wins without Jordan Love. You get 2 wins early in a season with your backup quarterback starting. You're feeling pretty good about yourselves. But Green Bay gets it done today, a 16-10 win over Indianapolis. Mitch, I am on YouTube. Please subscribe, comment, like it, interact. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you next time.